This week on Illegal Aliens, Isabel doesn't drink her milk, Max doesn't look where he's driving, and Michael doesn't have a verbal filter. Everybody owes carnival tickets for that House of Mirrors because we're looking at Max to the Max, episode 20 of season 1 of Roswell. I'm Chris.
I'm Claire, and this is Illegal Aliens, a Roswell podcast. Max to the Max first aired on, I'm assuming that's May 1st, 2000. It was written by Toni Graphia, the third of 5 episodes she wrote. We last saw her writing for Tess and Videotape. Toni's also written for Cop Rock, Director Quinn, and the Sarah Connell Chronicles, and Outlander.
I think that's Dr. Quinn.
I think you're right, it is Dr. Quinn. I am going to close the door, so hold that thought. I've got barking dogs in the background here. Sorry. Okay, that should help.
Yes. And the episode was directed by Patrick R. Norris, the second of 13 Roswell episodes he's directing. He was last in the director's chair for Heatwave. He's also directed for Dawson's Creek, The O.C., Friday Night Lights, Chuck, Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, and Parenthood. Let's start the recap.
Max leads the other aliens to a strange cave in a desert mountain that he can unlock with a handprint, the pod chamber, where they were born. Isabel panics and Max follows her, but Tess gives Michael the alien book and says that she can explain more if they all trust her.
After Michael leaves, Ed Harding appears from the cave wall and argues with Tess. Ed tells her that Agent Pierce is close and the kids still need his help to survive.
Michael confronts Max with the alien book, and Isabel lets her worries about the baby slip. Max takes the book to Tess to get more answers. An eager new deputy, David Fisher, shows up at Valenti's office. Maria overhears Michael and Isabel talking about a baby, and Ed Harding kills a man in a blue suit who's following him, leaving a silver handprint on the body.
Nasedo then takes Max's form and convinces Liz to ditch her crash-down shift and come with him for a ride in a new car, a rental, he explains, because the Jeep needed some work. They share a kiss, but when Liz has a strange flash in dark gray, she knows something is wrong. Back at the crashdown, Michael and Maria argue about what's happening to Isabel, while Alex offers Isabel unconditional help and support.
The real Max arrives at the crashdown with news that Isabel's pregnancy is only a dream. The others are relieved, but when Max asks after Liz, Maria says she saw her living with Max earlier, and they quickly add 2 and 2 to get Nasedo. Max calls Liz's mobile, but Liz is slow on the uptake answering the call, and Nasedo was dumping a body. Nasedo takes the phone away and hangs up before Liz can say anything useful.
Outside the crashdown, Max argues that the time has come to ask for Valenti's help, even if it means admitting the existence of shapeshifters. Michael pushes back on that, and Maria comes up with a compromise. She and Alex go to Valenti and explain that Max took Liz for a drive, but she called them, said she was scared, and Max wouldn't take her home.
On the highway, Nasedo calls the FBI switchboard. When they don't admit the existence of Agent Pierce, he leaves a message with the mile marker that he left the body at. After hanging up, he explains his plan to Liz. Use Max's face to lure Pierce away from the other aliens, and keep Liz close as a hostage because Pierce wants Liz alive to run experiments on, since she was healed. He also sets off an explosion in a gas station as one of the breadcrumbs for Pierce.
Back in Roswell, Deputy Fisher tells Valenti about the explosion, and Valenti drives off in search of Liz. The deputy waves down Max, who is following in the Jeep with the other aliens, and seems about to write a ticket before Isabel turns on the charm. Fisher then goes to collect a security camera fax from the gas station, which shows that Max is in 2 places at once.
Valenti finds the special unit at the mile marker and asks who the dead victim is, but they insist it's national security and under their control.
Nasedo takes Liz to a carnival. A woman rants about how there's no real aliens, and Nasedo engulfs her in blue light, which stamps the Whirlpool Galaxy icon as it shines into the sky. Tess spots the icon and realizes Nasedo's plan. To her horror, Max insists on following the sign into mortal danger to get Liz back.
Liz runs from Nasedo, who follows her onto a carousel and through a house of mirrors, with Valenti and special unit not far behind. Max also appears to confront his doppelganger, saying he's not leaving without Liz. Valenti watches, unable to help, while one Max is captured by the special unit and another leads Liz to safety.
In an empty bus, Liz steals a kiss, but gets more grayscale flashes and realizes that he's still with Nasedo. He morphs into a sinister clown and sets off on a rescue mission. Liz tries to follow but has no sense of direction left, bumps into Isabel, who's searching the carnival with Michael and Tess. Tearfully, she tells them that Max was taken.
We see Max trapped in a white room. Watching him through a one-way glass, a lackey asks when to start the tests, and Agent Pierce, who we recognize as Deputy Fisher, says to let him rest the night first.
Right.
Quite the episode.
Yep, we are definitely not slowing down here.
Oh no, not a bit. And we're still sort of mid-story beat, as it were, but
yeah,
we're just going to keep right on going.
We are. And it seems to me that we finally have some more stuff to talk about with the refugee metaphor, in that kind of we have Nasedo as the radical alien, the one who always deals with humans confrontationally because he's only seen the ones who are trying to kill him.
Yes.
And Tess, who seems kind of stuck between him and the other three who have integrated much more with their human worlds at this point.
Yeah, we get an interesting line from Tess about Nasedo not having any humanity.
Right.
Which is interesting to me because he was very good at simulating humanity, or, did a good enough job of it when we last saw him as Ed Harding.
Yes, and he clearly knows what to tell Liz to kind of play on her relationship with Max, despite the fact that he doesn't expect Max to go and try and help Liz.
Yes, he clearly thinks that it's interesting because he must have noticed that Tess falls somewhere into that middle ground, as you say, but he doesn't bank at all on the others having more developed humanity or awareness of their human selves. He clearly sees them in just black and white holy alien.
Right.
And we're increasingly getting the sense that that's not maybe what's happened.
Yeah. Definitely kind of setting up the notion of their human side being something that's very real and literal.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. This is the first time where Michael's idea, and he said it quite a lot, that the aliens are wary of, well, not the aliens, Max and Isabel specifically are wary of identifying themselves as alien because of the lives they have. Really feels like it has grounding because she sees that pod chamber and bolts. Yeah. And, normally Michael says, oh, you just don't want to live comfortable lives. And you think, well, this is Michael throwing a strop, but it kind of has weight now.
Yeah, and I've kind of been thinking about Nasedo's plan and kind of how much merit it had from the beginning, in that by the fact that he gets Liz safely out of the funhouse at the end, that kind of always had me thinking that, ironically, if the others had left him alone, everything might have turned out well for everybody. But on the other hand, I'm very struck by that moment with the two Maxes in the funhouse, where Max says, I am not leaving without her. I'm not going to get out of danger if she's not safe too.
Yeah.
And I kind of have this notion that Nasedo, though he doesn't understand the reasons why, he accepts that completely as fact and builds all of his following plans around that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And
so that is why he escorts Liz out first, because he knows that that is a necessary first step to getting Max safe.
Yes, he cannot do anything now while Liz is in jeopardy.
Right.
Without scuppering the plan further. So he has to really play the part of Max.
Right.
And it's interesting because he's been sort of wooden in the car running up to the funhouse, or he's been odd, he doesn't feel quite like Max, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because this isn't really Max, and it's very performative, very stilted. But then when he leaves, he's much more convincing as Max getting Liz to safety, right up until we get that weird flashing grey again.
Yeah, I do think that kind of to a certain extent, when he was trying to convince Liz, he was very good at it, and he kind of only let the oddness show through once he realized that she'd seen through him already.
Yes, and only once they were well away and it was beyond her capability to get back to Roswell.
Right.
He can afford to let it slip once they're,
Yes.
once they're past being spotted, I guess.
Yeah, but there are definitely moments where the show is trying to fool us with Max coming in there the first time and no setup to indicate that this is not the real Max, that it's Nasedo.
Oh, no, absolutely.
And again, in the funhouse where kind of we're led to believe that it's Nasedo who's caught and Max who is getting Liz out safely because that is what Max would do.
Yes. Yes, Nasedo's instinct would be to leave Liz and go on because he must save himself at all costs, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's not what happens.
Yep. And I have to say that showing the shell game at the carnival is so on the nose.
It's very on the nose. I feel as though a lot of what happens at the carnival is on the nose, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not going lightly with our metaphor by the time we hit the carnival.
No.
Which is fair, because if there's ever a setting that lends itself to that kind of over-the-top metaphorical thematic relevance, it's that carnival.
Yep. The mirrors and glasses in the funhouse, the carousel even with everything turning around and around and out of control.
Yes, even that clown coming down and cackling in the background as Max is captured.
Yeah.
There's just, it looks maniacal. There's this real sense that evil has somehow managed to swallow him whole.
Right. And on the other hand, we have this interesting arc for Valenti through the episode, I think. In that at the beginning he is very deep in distrust. He is calling to check up on everybody he possibly can.
Yes.
And Maria and Alex do come to him for help, even if they don't admit everything. And I think that shows him becoming more confident as he goes and challenges the special unit people who are, taking care of a murder in his county.
Yeah.
And then that moment in the funhouse kind of, again, shows him what he's been looking for, but he has no idea what to do with it, how to help.
Yes, the funhouse is interesting, so I'm not sure initially he completely understands what's happening.
Right.
He's not aware, I don't think, that Max, to begin with, was in two places at once, until suddenly there are two of them, and it could be the wonky reflections, or it could be two Maxes, and by the time he realizes, it's too late.
Yes, but definitely that one composition shot of the one Max being pressed right up against the glass next to him, and the other taking Liz and skedaddling out the back.
Yeah.
That is not mirrors.
No, that's very definitely not.
Yes. On the other hand, it's Fisher who is aware of the fact that there's two Maxes well beforehand, and I'm not quite sure what he would make of that.
Yes. I'm torn about Fisher.
Kind of the minimum conclusion you can make about that fact is that if there are two Maxes, then at least one of them is alien.
Yes. I think you have to, and...
Yes.
Yeah, if not one, then certainly both of them, but there's definitely something... I mean, it's interesting, because as Michael says, there are potentially almost semi-logical explanations you could leap to. None of them really holds water, though, and they all get rejected out of hand before they're even suggested. There is zero merit in turning around and saying, oh yes, that's Max's evil twin, that we've been suppressing for years.
Yes, it's not that kind of a TV show.
No, very much not.
Anyway, so now I kind of want to go back and talk about some of the slightly calmer moments before everything gets pushed into overdrive. That we have this whole thing with Tess, who, again, it seems clear to me, is still manipulating things a lot more than she says. And I actually wonder if the whole thing about giving Michael and Isabel the dreams of the kissing out on the rocks and the baby and all of that was simply so that she could tell Max with a straight face, no, we have to do it the human way. I hope that doesn't disappoint you.
Do you know, that would not surprise me a jot. But are we pinning the Michael and Isabel dreams on Tess too?
I do think so.
Oh, see, I always blamed those on the alignment of Venus or whatever it was.
Yeah, no, I kind of tend to, if it's something that seems to be only a one-time thing that has to do with them seeing or mentally experiencing something that's not physical, I blame it on Tess at this point.
This, yeah, as will become apparent, is not completely unreasonable. No, I do like that version very much.
Right.
I think it can work either way. You can
It could.
blame general wonkiness of star alignment, or you can blame it on Tess, and if you blame
Yes.
it on Tess, then she is much more manipulative than I ever gave her credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did notice that kind of even up to the point where he starts arguing about whether to trust Valenti, Michael does seem wistful about that baby and that chance for a life that he'd never really have thought of before.
Yeah, well, I think the key to that is that conversation he has with Isabel. He talks about he's never felt happier than he does in that dream.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it makes sense. We've seen Michael at home, and his family life was not the child on the swing with its parents in the sunlight.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense to me he would want that in some way, if not for him, then someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, and as much as he does share with Maria at their best, they never really have that kind of peace.
No, and he's not. I mean, he and Maria tether each other, but there's never really a sense that he's the anchor or the center in the way that he is in those dream sequences.
Yeah.
He and Maria are much more of a balancing scale, I think.
Yes, at least not yet. I think that they will get closer to that.
Yeah, they mature and they've got one of the most interesting relationships on the show, for what I think. But
Yes.
at the moment, certainly, yeah, they're not quite there.
So yeah, let's see. I was also interested in the fact that the book seems to be almost passed around as a symbol of trust in the beginning.
Yes, it's that old idea that knowledge is power and books are the key to that, but then none of them can read
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Tess might or might not be able to, I don't know, but none of our aliens can.
Yes, we will find out further later on that Tess definitely can't read it at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can see the pictures, and there's kind of also that notion of their appearances as destiny.
Yes, this whole idea that they've been engineered rather than born, and the implications of that, which are quite interesting.
Yes, yes. And Alex is, of course, the sweetest ever.
Alex is so touchingly earnest as ever,
Yes.
and so sincere. No, he's lovely here.
And I also really like the moment at the very end where it's Michael who hugs Liz to comfort her when she's
Yes, I
at
loved
her most
that.
distraught.
I mean, I suppose that goes back to what we've been sort of tracking about his evolving friendship with her, because to say he was reluctant
Yes,
to embark on this mission, never is he more
right.
demonstrative with Liz than just then.
Yes. Yeah, I wouldn't say that he was reluctant to help Liz. He was arguing about the how of it.
Yes, no, that's right. It wasn't, we can't save Liz, it's we can't do this to save Liz.
Yes.
Although I'm kind of intrigued by this idea that they can't. I mean, I understand they can't go to Valenti and say, look, there are two Maxes, one of them is terrible at alien, and the other is right here talking to you, and it's all completely normal, I promise. But I'm equally confused by the fact that it seems okay to say, look, real flesh and blood human Max has done this awful thing to our good friend, and we'd like you to get her back, but we don't really want you to follow up the consequences of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can completely understand them not worrying too much about the consequences down the road, especially since, it seems at least a 50-50 chance that he'd actually catch Nasedo instead of Max.
Yeah. Well,
But
particularly if Max doesn't go herring after Liz. It
yeah.
strikes me this plan is better executed if they don't all pile into a jeep.
Yeah, yeah, or at least if, Liz Max should be hunched in the back seat and not driving.
Well, yeah, logically, right?
Yes. And yeah, I did think it was interesting that we have this kind of conflict between Max and Tess, where Tess is determined to insulate the four of them and to say that they should not have this close contact with humans. And Max responds basically by trying to cut Tess out and saying, no, no, Liz belongs with us much more than you do.
Yes, well, I suppose Tess, or not Tess, Liz by that point has become kind of integrated into the alien secret and keeping it.
Yes.
And
Yep, that was 285 South, pretty much.
yeah, that was the whole plot point. They know
Yes.
their enemies and they are not Liz.
Right. Yes.
But yes, Tess's sort of conflict about helping humans also interests me because, I mean, we've seen Michael, Max, Isabel, all of them interact with other people, develop crushes, interests, bonds. Isabel had friends at one point. We haven't really
Yes.
seen them lately, but they're there.
Yes.
Has Tess never bonded with anybody? I mean, she says she grew up and it was very lonely, but
Yeah.
I mean, has Nasedo what? Homeschooled her for 10 years?
No, she definitely has experience going to school, and I actually would wonder if Nasedo being Nasedo, he would be watching and, possibly even impersonating her teachers or somebody else at the school,
Oh, well, that's distressing on a whole other level, but yes.
waiting for her to show that she has become close to humans, and then pulling her out of there. And when she expressed that she missed them, basically said, well, that's your fault for actually liking
Oh, that's
humans.
awful.
Yes.
I am very sorry I ever asked this question now. That's much more traumatic than the version where she just never makes friends. That explains a lot about Tess.
It does. Yes.
But yes, because I'd be very surprised if she hadn't had previous crushes that weren't Max or friends that weren't Isabel.
Right.
And
Yes.
yet, here she's going, no, 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 we cannot get involved. We are
Yeah.
not to do with them.
Yeah, and I would kind of also think that that might be that if she had, a first crush that didn't go too well, because let's face it, they never do.
No.
And that when she, didn't perk up after a few days as she normally did if it was just an ordinary friendship that she'd lost, that was when Nasedo started to tell her about Max,
Yes.
to comfort her and say, okay, no, no, don't worry about these humans because the perfect guy for you is out there. He's in Roswell, New Mexico.
I'm starting to think I prefer shouting Ed Harding to genial Ed Harding of the terrible dad humor.
That is probably fair.
At least the shouting one is honest.
Yes.
Crumbs.
Well, as far as that goes, I do think that Nasedo probably believes that.
No, I think you're right.
And Tess. Yeah.
But yeah, that would have wreaked havoc on a young Tess.
Oh, yes. So, and I just have a few minor plot points that I wanted to call out. One being that Max comes so close to spotting himself as he's driving up in the Jeep with Tess.
Yes. Does no one in Roswell have peripheral vision?
Well, it's pretty far from Sunnydale, but it seems to have some of the same effects.
Yeah, well, it's... The other one that jumped out at me is Liz doesn't seem to have much of it either, because she doesn't notice Nasedo later, does she? When he's putting the body on the highway.
Right.
I phrased that badly. She doesn't seem aware that Max is behind her lugging a body to beside the car.
Oh, okay, because I interpreted it differently. I thought that she was trying to see what was going on in the rearview mirror without trying to make it too obvious that she was watching him.
Ah.
And that was why she wasn't paying that much attention to what somebody was telling her on the phone.
Okay, that would make more logical sense. So Liz can, in fact, see beside her and potentially out the back of her head, courtesy of the mirror. It's just everybody else that... Because you're right, those two cars come very close to being beside each other.
Yes.
And you'd think seeing yourself in the other car would kind of jump out at you.
Yes. Either that or he'd not spot himself and go, wait a second, who is Liz driving off?
At least that much, right?
Yes.
Liz in posh car with how, why, what.
Yeah.
Tess might really be that distracting, who knows?
Yeah, and it seems so heartbreaking that Max is distracted by other things and not paying that much attention to Liz at the beginning of this episode, or really through a lot of the previous episode. And then kind of when he takes for granted that she'll be there at the crashdown when he's ready, she is not there and she's in trouble.
Yes. And that's, I think, around the thing around which hinges the success of Nasedo's plan. He comes in there and says, "We need time together, just the two of us. I don't want to have anyone else tagging along." And they do need that time.
Yes.
So of course she
Yes.
goes.
Yes. Though, I'm tired of reporting into everybody is, of course, a very bad idea.
Yes, that's a Michael line, not a Max line.
Yes. And the other stuff is kind of to do with the time scale along the chase, because Valenti pulls off at the mile marker.
Mm-hmm.
The Jeep does not. Tess tells them, oh, that's a special unit, drive, and they do.
Yes.
But somehow it seems that Valenti gets to the carnival ahead of them, and we don't see them passing him again with his sirens wailing, and...
No, although, oh gosh, I suppose if you wrangle it, he doesn't stop all that long to talk to the special unit.
Right.
And they are very insistent, and if he keeps going with the sirens, I suppose there's a chance that he might pull ahead of them?
Yeah. But, he would probably recognize their Jeep by this point.
You'd think, wouldn't you? And, at least take the time to tell them to, for God's sake, go back?
Yeah. Either that, or we missed a scene where it's like a few minutes after that, oh shit, Valenti's coming up again, we can't let him see us, pull off onto this back road.
That could be it too, or they take the wrong turn at Albuquerque, I don't know.
They don't go as far as Albuquerque.
No, this is years of watching Looney Tunes coming to episodes.
Oh. I did actually have an idea for a Young Wizards Roswell crossover fanfic, where there was a magical portal at Albuquerque which they'd nicknamed Left Turn.
There's a magical portal somewhere, because Ed Harding comes out of nowhere at the beginning of this episode.
Okay, what I was assuming that was, and which I kind of like, is that he had shapeshifted into part of the wall.
Can he do that? Would that not hamper things like breathing? Does he not need to breathe?
I think he could probably hold his breath for a long time, and be honest, you probably wouldn't notice if a patch of rock was breathing.
Fair point. Well, that works as well as any explanation. It's much better than Ed Harding leapt through time and space and appeared in front of Tess.
Yeah, that also isn't this show.
No.
And we hear later that he has this very different skeletal structure from humans, so...
Yes, he's very definitely more alien than... He's completely alien and not human at all, so who knows what he's capable of, really.
Yes.
I can't think it would be pleasant to turn into rock, but if it...
I think it might be very restful, actually.
It could be, but also, why is he casually metamorphing into rock in the pod chamber on the off chance?
Well, possibly he was hanging out in the pod chamber in his usual shape, and when he heard the door opening, just kind of decided to become the wall instead of being a fly on the wall, just was coming in what they would say.
Okay, that works as well as anything. I think that's going to have to be the explanation, isn't it?
And the last thing I wanted to call out, going back to the House of Mirrors, is the fact that the second Max just kind of shows up there with no warning because we wanted that surprise moment.
We miss a whole lot of them getting to the carnival, and it's the right narrative choice, even if it does confuse the timeline.
Yes. Yes, it kind of seems like there would have been a moment where it's like, shoot, Max would usually be the one who tells us we need to stick together.
Yeah. Although, actually, as I think about it, it's entirely possible they arrived there earlier and just didn't get to the House of Mirrors in time. Took a wrong turn at the carousel or something.
Possible. Yeah, I could imagine them questioning the people who saw the woman getting engulfed by the alien light for a little while.
Yeah, that must have caused general chaos, right?
Yes.
That's not your average carnival trick.
No, it is not. Though it does make sense as a good place to pull off alien stunts, figuring that people will go, oh yeah, it's all done with lights and mirrors.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it reminds me of another moment that I had planned for a Roswell fanfic where at a concert, Max pulls Liz up onto his alien energy shield and they dance above the heads of people, knowing that everybody will think that it's a special effects stunt put on by the band's team.
Yes. And there's just something about the wild, the throws of the carnival that work with the general oddness of whatever it is, whatever the stunt is that Nasedo pulls.
Yes. Yeah. I have to admit, I'd always thought beforehand that the poor woman who was getting engulfed died as a result, and it's not really clear that she might not be fine at the end.
Oh, no, I think she dies. I thought that was text.
Okay.
That was always my read. This is an episode for being demoralizing, apparently.
Okay, so are we ready for favorite moments?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Have you got
mine
one?
Would have to be... Yeah, mine would have to be Alex coming up to Isabel and saying, no matter what, I'm here with you.
That's very good, yeah. That's Alex at some of his best, really.
Yes.
I think mine is... I mean, it's a distressing ending, but I love the reunion of Liz with Isabel and Michael.
Yes.
The togetherness, the community of them in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's bittersweet, but I think that's my favourite.
Okay.
And just the acting there, too. It's particularly good.
Right. Which takes us nicely to our MVP discussion.
Yes.
And I will definitely pitch Jason Behr.
I think you have to for this one, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, you might be able to put together an argument for Sherry Appleby, but...
You could. That would also work, but I think he's asked to do so much, and he makes it look so easy.
Yes. Definitely a nice stretch to pull off evil Max, and he does it very well.
Yes, and I mean, playing Max and playing Nasedo playing Max, it can't be an easy thing to do. And he makes them just similar enough and just different enough.
Yes.
That I don't think there's a huge amount of discussion there.
All right.
Well, that brings us, I guess, to ratings. Have you got...
Yes.
What would you do?
You want me to go ahead first?
Yeah, please do while I scrabble here.
I'm going to say 5 funhouse mirrors.
Oh, I like that. I shall say 4 carousels.
4 carousels. All right. If you agree or disagree with us, you can get in touch via Twitter at @alienscast, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/alienscast. Visit our blog at alienscast.com. Weigh in on the forums. They are still waiting for you.
Or you can get in touch via email at illegalalienscast@gmail.com and suggest anything you'd like us to discuss on the podcast. You can also call in with audio files, send them to us over on Gmail, that we will play. We're on TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, podcasts, so you can listen to us there if you'd prefer that to iTunes.
If you enjoyed this episode, please link to us on your blog, on Twitter, Facebook, wherever else you are on the internet. You can leave a review on iTunes, help other Roswellians find us. Our theme music is Epic Trailer Intro by Honey Lemon.
This podcast is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Find out more by searching for Creative Commons. I'm Claire.
I'm Chris, and this is Illegal Aliens, a Roswell podcast. The special unit is still too close for comfort, not sure when we'll release the next episode. The regular schedule will be resuming in October.
Yes, so next up we have The White Room,
in which Isabel pushes her power to the next level, and Valenti gets another chance to run to the rescue.
That will be very good. A bit already.